The great hall of the Zalathi homeworld fell silent as the last transmission from Kepler-7 cut to static. High Counselor Venth closed his large, dark eyes and let his head fall forward. Another world lost. Another billion innocent lives gone. Around the circular chamber, the other council members sat in stunned silence. Their delicate, deer-like features showed the strain of months of constant bad news. The Zalathi had never known war before the Krex came. They were farmers, artists, and healers. Violence was something they read about in ancient history books, not something that happened to civilized people. "How many does that make?" asked Counselor Mira, her voice barely above a whisper. 17 worlds in 6 months, Venth replied without opening his eyes. 17 worlds full of families, children, elders. All gone. The Krex hegemony moved through space like a plague. They were massive, scaled creatures with razor-sharp claws and teeth that could tear through metal. They called themselves the ultimate predators, and they proved it by eating anything that moved, literally. The Krex did not just conquer worlds. They consumed them. Every living thing became food or sport. They had no use for prisoners or slaves. They simply killed and ate everything before moving on to the next system. "Sir," came a young voice from the back of the chamber. Aide Thomas stepped forward nervously. "We have reports from our scouts in the outer systems." Venth finally opened his eyes. The young Zalathi looked terrified. "What now?" "The Krex fleets are moving toward the core worlds. Intelligence says they will reach Zalathi Prime in less than 3 months. The homeworld. Their last safe place. Once the Krex reached here, it would all be over. 3 billion Zalathi lived on this world alone." Venth tried to imagine that many people dying and failed. The number was too big to understand. "What about our allies?" Counselor Mira asked. "The Vegan Republic? The Centauri Coalition?" Thomas shook his head sadly. "They have all refused to help. They say the Krex are too strong. They will not risk their own people for us." Venth was not surprised. The galaxy was full of civilizations that talked about peace and cooperation, but when real danger came, everyone looked out for themselves. The Zalathi had learned this lesson too late. "What about our own military?" another counselor asked. "Gone," Venth said simply. "Our last battle fleet was destroyed at Rigel Station 2 weeks ago. We have nothing left that can fight the Krex in space." The room fell quiet again. Outside the great windows, Venth could see the peaceful cities of Zalathi Prime. Families walked in the parks. Children played in the streets. None of them knew that death was coming for them in a few months. "There must be something we can do," Mira said. "Someone who will help us." Venth had been thinking the same thing for weeks. He had sent messages to every major power in the galaxy. All had said no. The smart ones did not even reply. "Nobody wanted to fight the Krex, sir," Thomas said quietly. "There is one option we have not tried." "What is that?" "We could send out a general distress call. To everyone. Not just the major powers," Venth frowned. "You mean to the smaller civilizations? The frontier worlds?" "Yes, sir, and the unknown species, too. There are lots of signals coming from unexplored sectors. Maybe one of them would help." It was a desperate idea. Most of the unknown species were probably just as weak as the Zalathi. Some might even be worse than the Krex. But what choice did they have? "Very well," Venth said. "Prepare a general distress signal. Send it to every corner of the galaxy." Thomas nodded and hurried away. Within an hour, he returned with a draft message. "Read it aloud," Venth ordered. Tomas cleared his throat. "To all civilizations who receive this message. The Zalathi Confederation is facing extinction. The Krex hegemony has destroyed 17 of our worlds and killed billions of our people. They will reach our homeworld in 3 months. We have no military left to defend ourselves. We are peaceful people who have never harmed anyone. We beg for help from any species that believes innocent lives should be protected. We do not ask you to die for us. We only ask that you try, please. Our children are counting on you." The message was simple and honest. It said everything that needed to be said. Venth approved it, and within minutes it was broadcast across the galaxy on every frequency they could access. For 3 days, nothing happened. Then the replies started coming in. Most were rejections. "Sorry, but we cannot help. We sympathize but have our own problems. May the stars guide you in your final hours." Some were worse. A few species actually seemed happy that the Zalathi were about to die. One message just said, "Good luck being eaten," with what sounded like laughter in the background. By the end of the week, Venth had lost hope. Nobody was coming. The Zalathi would face the Krex alone and die alone. Then, on the 8th day, something different arrived. Thomas ran into the council chamber, out of breath and excited.
Sir, we got a reply.
Another rejection? Venth asked tiredly. No, sir. Someone said yes. Venth sat up straight. What? Who? They call themselves humans. They are from a planet called Earth in the Sol system. I never heard of them before. What did they say exactly? Thomas pulled up the message on his tablet. The words were simple. Received your distress call. Help is coming. Hold on, that was it. No long explanation. No demands for payment. No conditions. Just a promise that help was on the way. Where is this Sol system? Venth asked. It is in the outer spiral arm. A very small, isolated system. Our computers show no previous contact with them. A small, isolated system. Probably another weak species like the Zalathi themselves. But at least someone cared enough to try. How long until they arrive? Venth asked. Based on their location and standard faster-than-light travel, maybe 6 weeks? 6 weeks. The Krex would still be months away when the humans arrived. That was good. It would give them time to coordinate some kind of defense, sir, Thomas said carefully. I should mention something. I tried to research these humans in our databases, and there is almost no information about them. Just a few long-range sensor readings from exploration ships. But what we do have is odd. Odd how? They appear to be from a death world. Venth blinked. Death worlds were planets so dangerous that most species could not survive on them. High gravity, poisonous atmosphere, extreme weather, deadly predators. Only the strongest life forms could evolve on such places. Are you sure? Yes, sir. Their planet has gravity almost twice ours. The atmosphere is highly reactive. And the surface appears to be covered with aggressive life forms. Maybe these humans were tougher than they seemed. Maybe they could actually help fight the Krex. Or maybe they would just die quickly and give the Zalathi a few extra days of life. Either way, it did not matter. They were the only help coming. 3 weeks later, long-range sensors detected ships entering the system. 12 vessels moving in a tight formation. They looked small compared to Krex warships, but they moved with purpose. The lead ship sent a simple message. This is Commander Sarah, Chen of the Terran Defense Force. We are here to help. Venth felt something he had not felt in months. Hope, little did he know that the galaxy was about to learn why Earth was called a death world, and why the things that survived there were the most dangerous predators in the universe. High Counselor Venth stood in the docking bay of Zalathi Prime's main orbital station, watching the human shuttle approach. His heart pounded with nervous excitement. After weeks of waiting, their rescuers had finally arrived. The shuttle was small and plain. Nothing like the elegant ships the Zalathi built. It looked more like a flying box made of metal and sharp angles. No decorations, no smooth curves, just function over form. When the airlock opened, Venth got his first look at humanity. The leader stepped out first. She was smaller than Venth expected, barely reaching his shoulder. Her skin was a light brown color and she had short black hair. She wore a simple uniform in dark green with metal badges on the chest. Behind her came 11 other humans. They were all different sizes and colors. Some had dark skin, others light. Some were tall, others short. Male and female mixed together. They looked so ordinary. Venth felt his hope start to fade. These creatures looked even more fragile than the Zalathi. They had no claws, no fangs, no natural armor. Their eyes were tiny compared to Zalathi eyes. They did not even look like they could see properly. I am Commander Sarah Chen, the human leader said. Her voice was steady and calm. You must be High Counselor Venth. Yes, Venth replied, trying to hide his disappointment. Thank you for coming. Though I must ask, where's the rest of your fleet? This is it, Chen said simply. Venth blinked. I'm sorry, I don't understand. We detected 12 ships, correct. 12 ships, about 200 people total. 200 people. The Krex were coming with thousands of warships and millions of soldiers. Venth felt sick to his stomach. Commander Chen, he said gently, I think there has been a misunderstanding. We are facing the Krex hegemony. They are the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. They have conquered dozens of worlds. We need an army, not a... He struggled to find polite words. Not a handful of small, weak-looking aliens. Chen finished for him. Her lips curved in what might have been a smile. I did not mean to offend, Venth said quickly. You didn't. I understand your concern. We probably don't look like much to you. It's not that we don't appreciate your courage, Counselor Mira added. She had joined them in the docking bay. But perhaps you don't understand what we're facing. The Kreks are massive creatures. They have razor claws and teeth like swords. They eat other sentient beings alive. We read your files, Chen said. 8 feet tall, natural weapons, hunt in packs. Impressive. Then you understand why 200 people cannot help us? Chen looked around the docking bay. Her small eyes seemed to take in every detail. Tell me about your military doctrine. Our what? How do you fight wars? What are your tactics? Venth exchanged a confused look with Mira. We don't fight wars. We are a peaceful species. We try to solve problems with talking. Right, and when talking doesn't work, we call for help from our allies. And when your allies won't help? Venth was quiet for a long moment. We die. Chen nodded like this made perfect sense. That explains a lot. Show me your defensive positions. For the next 2 hours, Chen and her team toured the orbital defenses around Zalathi Prime. Venth pointed out their few remaining weapons platforms and shield generators. Chen asked technical questions that Venth could barely answer. These shields, Chen said, looking at a readout, they're designed to stop energy weapons? Yes, most civilized species use plasma cannons and laser arrays. What about kinetic weapons, or missiles, projectiles? Venth frowned. Those are very primitive weapons. Nobody uses them anymore. Chen made a note on a small device. I see, and your weapons platforms? They fire focused particle beams. Very clean and efficient kills. Clean kills. Chen repeated the words like they tasted strange. How many shots to kill a Krex? Our computers estimate 3 direct hits to vital areas. And if you miss the vital areas? Then, many more shots. Chen finished her tour and called her team together for a private meeting. Venth watched them talk in low voices, using hand gestures he didn't understand. Sometimes they seemed to be arguing. Other times they made sounds that might have been laughter. Finally, Chen returned to Venth. We need to make some changes to your defenses. What kind of changes? First, we're going to turn off your shields. Venth nearly choked. Turn them off? Why? Because they won't stop what's coming anyway. And we need the power for other things. But without shields, we're defenseless. No, Chen said quietly. Without shields, you're honest about what you're facing. That's the first step to winning. Over the next week, the humans worked around the clock. They brought strange equipment from their ships and installed it throughout the station. They set up new sensors, new computers, new weapon systems that Venth had never seen before. The weapons worried him the most. They looked primitive, like something from the ancient times. Metal tubes that fired solid projectiles instead of energy beams. Chemical explosives instead of antimatter charges. These weapons are thousands of years old. Mira complained to Chen one day. 50,000 years old, actually, Chen replied. We've been refining them for a long time. But why use such primitive technology? Chen picked up one of the projectiles. It was a simple metal cylinder with a pointed tip. Because these work differently than energy weapons. A plasma bolt either hits or misses. But this, she held up the projectile. This doesn't care about shields or armor. It just keeps going until something stops it. It seems inefficient. Maybe, but it's reliable. And reliability matters when lives are on the line. The humans also did strange things with the station itself. They welded metal plates over windows. They filled hallways with obstacles and barriers. They turned the beautiful open spaces into a maze of choke points and defensive positions. You're making our home into a fortress, Venth observed. Yes, Chen said without apology. Pretty stations don't win wars. But we don't want to win wars. We want to survive them. Chen stopped working and looked at him directly. Counselor, can I ask you something? Of course. When the Kreks come, what do you think will happen? They will attack us. We will try to defend ourselves. Many of us will die, but hopefully some will escape. And then? Then, they will hunt down the ones who escaped. Eventually they will kill us all. Chen nodded. That's one possibility. Here's another. When the Kreks come, we kill them all. Venth stared at her. Kill them all? Every single one. Make sure none of them leave this system alive. That's impossible. There will be thousands of them. Probably. But here's the thing about humans, Counselor. We don't fight to survive. We fight to win. And when we fight to win, we use every advantage we can get. What advantages do you have against the Kreks? Chen smiled again. It was not a comforting expression. They think they're the ultimate predators. They're wrong. 3 days later, Long-range sensors detected the Krex fleet entering the outer system. Hundreds of massive warships, each one the size of a small city. They moved in a loose formation, confident and unhurried. Venth felt the familiar terror rise in his chest, but when he looked at Commander Chen, she seemed almost excited. "Finally," she said. "I was getting bored." The Krex ship sent the usual message. "Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." Chen opened a return channel. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. You are ordered to leave this system immediately." The Krex response was laughter. Actual laughter transmitted across space. "Little prey animals," came the reply. "We will enjoy eating you." Chen closed the channel and turned to her communications officer. "Send the message." The human nodded and pressed a series of buttons. A new signal went out from the station, but not to the Krex. It went to the edge of the system where 12 small human ships waited in the darkness. "What message?" Venth asked. Chen looked out the viewport at the approaching Krex fleet. Her expression was calm, almost peaceful. "Welcome to Earth's playground," she said quietly. "Let's show them how monsters really hunt." Admiral Kreth of the Krex hegemony stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the pathetic defenses around the Zalathi homeworld. A few old weapons platforms, some basic shields, and one small space station. This would be over in minutes. Kreth was a massive creature, even by Krex standards. His scales were deep black with red markings that showed his kill count. His claws could tear through steel, and his teeth had crushed the bones of 1,000 enemies. He had personally devoured the leaders of 6 different species. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we are detecting some unusual readings from the station." "What kind of unusual?" "Unknown technology, sir. The energy signatures don't match anything in our databases." Kreth growled with amusement. "Probably some desperate last-minute weapons." "It won't matter." The Krex fleet moved into attack formation. 300 warships arranged in a perfect sphere around Zalathi Prime. Each ship was armed with plasma cannons that could melt through any known armor. The plan was simple. Destroy the orbital defenses, then land ground forces to begin the harvest. "Sir," another officer called out, "we're detecting ships moving in the outer system." "How many?" 12 small vessels. They appear to be the humans who answered the Zalathi distress call." Kreth laughed, a sound like grinding metal. 12 ships? Are they planning to surrender?" "Sir, they're moving toward us." "All 12 of them?" "Yes, sir. They're not even in formation. They just seem to be charging straight at us." Kreth looked at the tactical display, 12 tiny dots moving toward his massive fleet. It was the most ridiculous thing he had ever seen. "Are they insane?" he wondered aloud. "Perhaps it's some kind of honor ritual," suggested his tactical officer. "Some species prefer to die fighting rather than be hunted down." "Very well. We'll give them a quick death. All ships target the human vessels. Let's end this quickly." The Krex fleet opened fire. Hundreds of plasma beams reached out toward the approaching human ships. At this range, with that much firepower, nothing could survive. But the human ships didn't explode. They didn't even slow down. "Sir," the sensor operator said, confusion in his voice. "The humans are still there." "Impossible. Check your readings." "I am, sir. Direct hits on all targets. But they're still moving." Kreth stared at the display. The 12 human ships were now much closer, and they were not only intact, they were accelerating. "How are they surviving that much firepower?" Kreth demanded. "Unknown, sir. Their armor must be incredibly advanced." The first human ship reached the outer edge of the Krex formation. Instead of firing weapons, it did something that shocked every Krex on every ship. It rammed directly into a Krex cruiser. The impact was tremendous. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire and debris, but before anyone could process what had happened, the second human ship rammed another Krex vessel. Then the third. Then the fourth. "They're ramming us!" Kreth roared. What kind of insane tactic is that? But the ramming attacks were just the beginning. The remaining human ships didn't explode when they hit. Instead, they seemed to attach themselves to the Krex hulls like parasites. "Sir," came a panicked voice from one of the outer ships. "The humans are cutting through our hull." "What?" "They're using some kind of cutting tools. They're opening holes in our armor." Kreth couldn't believe what he was hearing. "All ships, focus fire on the attached human vessels. Destroy them." "Sir, we can't fire on them without hitting our own ships." The Krex had never faced an enemy that would deliberately crash into their vessels. Their tactics were all based on ship-to-ship combat at long range. This close-quarters madness was completely outside their experience. Then the reports started coming in from the ships that had been boarded. Sir, the humans are inside the ship. How many of them? Unknown. They're moving through the ventilation shafts. Use your claws. Tear them apart. We're trying, sir. But they have weapons we've never seen before. Kreth listened in growing horror as his crews described the human boarding parties. The humans were smaller than Krex, but they moved differently. They didn't charge forward in straight lines like civilized warriors. They attacked from unexpected angles, used the ship's own structure against the defenders, and employed weapons that made no sense. They're using explosive devices, sir. They're destroying our own corridors to trap us. They have projectile weapons that fire through walls. Sir, they're using our own atmospheric systems against us. They've introduced some kind of gas, but the worst reports came from the ships where humans had reached the command centers. Sir, this is Captain Vorth of the Decimator. The humans have taken the bridge. They're using our own weapons against the fleet. Kreth watched in disbelief as 3 of his own ships turned their guns on their former allies. The humans had somehow learned to operate Krex's technology in a matter of minutes. How is that possible? He demanded. His tactical officer was studying the sensor readings with growing alarm. Sir, I think I understand what's happening. Explain. The humans aren't fighting like prey animals. They're not even fighting like predators. Then what are they fighting like? Like something that hunts predators. The battle was turning into a nightmare. The Krex fleet was powerful, but it was designed to fight other fleets in orderly formations. The humans fought like a virus, getting inside the Krex defenses and destroying them from within. More human ships arrived from the edges of the system. They moved in patterns that made no tactical sense, appearing from unexpected directions, hitting weak points that shouldn't have existed. Sir, the communications officer reported, we're receiving surrender demands. From the Zalathi? No, sir, from the humans, Kreth almost laughed. Surrender demands? They have 12 ships. Sir, we've lost 47 ships in the last 10 minutes. Kreth felt cold fear creep up his spine. 47 ships, nearly a sixth of his fleet gone. Patch me through to the human commander. A new voice came over the communication system. It was calm, professional, and utterly without fear. This is Commander Chen. You have 30 seconds to surrender your fleet. I am Admiral Kreth of the Krex Hegemony. He roared back. We do not surrender to inferior species. Wrong answer. The channel closed. Almost immediately, every human ship in the battle zone changed tactics. Instead of boarding and capture, they switched to pure destruction. The humans had been holding back. Kreth watched his fleet die around him. Ships that had survived the boarding action suddenly exploded from internal detonations. The captured vessels turned their weapons to maximum power and fired, point blank into their neighbors before self-destructing. The humans had planted bombs throughout his fleet while they were fighting, sir, his tactical officer said quietly. We need to retreat. The Krex Hegemony does not retreat. Sir, we've lost 60% of our ships. The humans are systematically destroying us. Kreth looked at the tactical display. His magnificent fleet was scattered debris and burning hulks. The humans had somehow turned a massive space battle into a slaughter. All ships, he said finally, withdraw to the outer system. But as the surviving Krex ships tried to flee, they discovered the humans had prepared for that too. More human vessels appeared from asteroid fields and gas giant shadows, cutting off escape routes. The humans had been planning this battle for weeks. Every move, every tactic, every possible response had been anticipated. Sir, came a terrified voice from one of the fleeing ships. The humans are following us. Of course they are. All ships, prepare for hyperjump. Sir, we can't. They've deployed some kind of interference field. Kreth felt true terror for the first time in his life. The humans weren't just winning. They were hunting his people down like animals. On the surface of Zalathi Prime, High Counselor Venth watched the battle through the orbital sensors. He could barely understand what he was seeing. Commander Chen, he said into his communicator, what is happening up there? Chen's voice came back, still calm despite the chaos around her. We're teaching the Krex an important lesson. What lesson? That Earth didn't climb to the top of the food chain by being the biggest or the strongest. Then how? By being the smartest, and the most persistent, and by never ever giving up. The battle raged for 6 more hours. When it finally ended, the Krex Hegemony had lost their entire invasion fleet. Not a single ship escaped to warn their homeworld. Commander Chen stood in the wreckage of a Krex command ship, looking down at Admiral Kreth's body. The mighty Predator had died badly, torn apart by his own terror as much as by human weapons. She activated her communicator. "Zalathi Prime, this is Chen. The system is secure." "Commander," came Venth's voice, shaking with disbelief. "How did you do this?" Chen looked out through the shattered viewport at the debris field that had once been the most feared fleet in the galaxy. "We kept our promise," she said simply. "Help came?" The news of the Zalathi victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. In one day, the feared Krex hegemony had lost their entire invasion fleet to 12 human ships. Most species thought it was impossible. The Krex thought it was a fluke. They were about to learn how wrong they were. General Thane commanded the Krex home fleet from his fortress on the planet Morvac. He was older than Admiral Kreth had been, more experienced and much more careful. When word reached him that the Zalathi expedition had been destroyed, he did not panic. Probably some kind of new weapon, he told his staff, or maybe Kreth underestimated the Zalathi defenses. But over the next few weeks, more disturbing reports began to arrive. Krex supply convoys were disappearing. Remote outposts went silent. Patrol fleets sent out distress calls before vanishing completely. And always, the reports mentioned humans. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported, "we've lost contact with the Rigel sector." "All of it?" "Yes, sir. 12 Krex colonies gone. The last transmission mentioned human ships." Thane studied the tactical map on his wall. Red marks showed all the positions where Krex forces had disappeared. There was a pattern, but it made no sense. "They're not attacking our main bases," he observed. "No, sir. They seem to be targeting isolated positions. Outposts, supply depots, small colonies. Why? Those targets have no strategic value." His intelligence officer hesitated. "Sir, I think they're hunting our people." "Hunting?" "Not for territory or resources. They seem to be specifically targeting Krex personnel. And sir, none of the humans have been found dead. That was the most disturbing part. In every attack, the Krex defenders were killed or captured, but human casualties were almost zero. Either the humans were incredibly lucky or they were incredibly good at this." "Sir," another officer interrupted, "we have a priority transmission from Admiral Vex in the Outer Rim." "Put him through." Admiral Vex appeared on the communication screen. He looked terrified, which was shocking. Vex was one of the most experienced Krex commanders alive. "General Thane," Vex said, his voice shaking, "we need reinforcements immediately." "What's your situation?" "The humans have been attacking our positions for 3 days. But sir, they're not fighting like any enemy we've ever faced." "Explain." "They don't attack our strongest positions. They attack our weakest ones. They don't try to hold territory. They just kill our people and disappear." Thane frowned. "That's not how wars are fought. Sir, I don't think they're fighting a war. I think they're exterminating us." Before Thane could reply, alarms began sounding throughout his command center. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "we have ships approaching the system." "How many?" "Unknown. They're using some kind of stealth technology. Sensors are only getting partial readings. Are they human ships?" "Possibly." "Sir, they're not responding to our hail." Thane felt the first stirrings of real concern. Morvac was the most heavily defended world in Krex space. If the humans were attacking here, they were either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, or incredibly confident. "All defensive platforms online," he ordered. "Ready the home fleet." "Sir, the fleet is already launching." Through the command center's windows, Thane could see hundreds of Krex warships rising from the planet's surface. The home fleet was the pride of the hegemony, more powerful than any other force in Krex space. But as the ships reached orbit, something went wrong. "Sir," the communications officer said, his voice filled with confusion, "Admiral Torx is reporting engine problems." "What kind of problems?" "Sir, he says his engines just shut down. All of them." "That's impossible." "Sir, Admiral Caney is reporting the same thing." "And Admiral Brust?" Thane watched in growing horror as his entire fleet drifted helplessly in orbit. One by one, every ship lost power. "Sir," his technical officer said, "I'm detecting some kind of signal being transmitted from the ships." "What kind of signal?" "It looks like a computer virus, sir. Something is taking control of our systems. The humans had somehow infected the entire Krex fleet with a computer virus. But how? The Krex used completely different technology than anyone else in the galaxy. Sir, the communications officer called out. We're receiving a transmission from the human ships. Put it through. A new voice filled the command center. It was calm, professional, and utterly without emotion. This is Captain Rodriguez of the Terran Reaper Squad. General Thane, you are under arrest for crimes against sentient life. Thane almost laughed. Arrest? You in what army? This army. Suddenly, every screen in the command center lit up with the same image. Human soldiers inside Krek's ships. Somehow, while the fleet was being disabled, human boarding parties had infiltrated every single vessel. Impossible, Thane whispered. Sir, his tactical officer said, I'm reading massive life sign failures throughout the fleet. Thane realized what was happening. The humans weren't trying to capture the ships. They were systematically killing every Krex on board. All ground defenses open fire, he ordered. Sir, we can't target the ships without hitting our own people. Our people are already dead. The surface weapons opened fire, destroying several of the disabled Krex ships. But the humans had planned for this too. More human vessels appeared from the planet's shadow moving toward the surface. Sir, the sensor operator reported, human ships are landing all across the planet. How many troops? Unknown, sir. They're using some kind of jamming technology. Reports began flooding in from Krex positions around the planet. The humans were attacking everywhere at once, but not in any pattern that made military sense. Sir, they've taken the power plant. Sir, the communications center is under attack. Sir, they've destroyed the spaceport. The humans weren't trying to conquer Morvac. They were trying to strand the surviving Krex on the planet cut off from help. Sir, his aide said quietly, perhaps we should consider surrender. The Krex do not surrender. But even as he said it, Thane knew they were beaten. The humans had destroyed his fleet, crippled his defenses, and trapped his people on their own homeworld. And they had done it all without losing a single ship. The attack on Morvac lasted for 18 hours. When it was over, the most powerful military force in Krex space had been completely eliminated. But the humans didn't stop there. Over the next 2 months, human Reaper squads appeared throughout Krex territory. They moved like ghosts, striking at targets across dozens of star systems simultaneously. They captured Krex leaders, destroyed Krex bases, and liberated Krex slave worlds. But the most terrifying thing about the humans was how they seemed to know everything about Krex operations. They knew where every base was located, which ships carried the most important cargo, which commanders were planning what operations. The Krex began to realize that the humans had been watching them for a long time, studying them, learning their weaknesses. On the planet Xeris, General Malak made his last stand. He had gathered the surviving Krex forces for one final battle against the human invaders. We are Krex, he roared to his troops. We are the ultimate predators. We will not be hunted by these soft little creatures. His speech was interrupted by a human voice broadcasting on all frequencies. General Malak, this is Commander Torres of the Terran Reaper Squad. You are surrounded. Surrender now and your death will be quick. Malak laughed. We have you outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Wrong, came the reply. You have us exactly where we want you. The battle began at dawn. 10,000 Krex warriors charged across the plains toward what appeared to be a small human position. They never made it halfway. The humans had turned the entire battlefield into a trap. Hidden weapons, buried explosives, and carefully planned kill zones eliminated the Krex army in less than an hour. General Malak was found at the end, sitting alone in his command bunker. A single human soldier stood over him. How? Malak asked. How did you do this to us? The human soldier removed her helmet. She was young with short blonde hair and calm blue eyes. You made a mistake, she said. What mistake? You thought you were the hunters. But on Earth, everything hunts everything else. We learned to hunt the hunters, but we are stronger than you. Strength doesn't matter if you can't use it. Speed doesn't matter if you're going in the wrong direction, and being a predator doesn't matter if your prey is smarter than you are. Malak felt something he had never experienced before. Helplessness. What are you going to do with us? The human soldier looked at him with something that might have been pity. That depends. Are you going to keep eating people? We are what we are. Then you know what we have to do. The last transmission from Krex space was a simple message broadcast on all frequencies. This is the Terran Defense Force. The Krex hegemony no longer exists. All former Krex slave worlds are hereby liberated. Any species that engages in the consumption of sentient life will be dealt with accordingly. Consider this your only warning. The galaxy listened in stunned silence. In less than 6 months, the humans had completely destroyed the most feared empire in known space, and they had done it with only a few hundred ships. The age of the great predators was over. The age of the hunters had begun. 6 months after the fall of the Krex hegemony, High Counselor Venth stood in his office looking out at the rebuilt cities of Zalathi Prime. Children played in the parks again. Families walked the streets without fear. The nightmare was over, but Venth was not entirely happy. A soft chime announced a visitor. Commander Sarah Chen entered wearing a crisp new uniform. Instead of the simple green she had worn during the war, she now wore black with silver markings. "The uniform of the Terran Protection Force, Commander," Venth said, turning to greet her. "Thank you for coming." "It's General now, actually," Chen said with a slight smile. "But you can still call me Sarah if you want." "Congratulations on your promotion, thank you. I understand you wanted to discuss something important." Venth gestured to a chair and they both sat down. For a moment neither spoke. Finally, Venth found his voice. "Sarah, I need to ask you something that has been bothering me." "Go ahead." "When you first arrived here, you promised to help us. You kept that promise. You saved billions of lives. That's what we came here to do." "Yes, but..." Venth struggled to find the right words. "What you did to the Krex, was it necessary to kill all of them?" Chen's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. "You think we went too far?" "I don't know, maybe. The Krex were terrible creatures, but they were still living beings. Living beings who ate children," Chen said quietly. "Yes. But Counselor, may I tell you about Earth?" Venth nodded. "Earth is what we call a death world. Everything on our planet is trying to kill everything else. We have creatures that can crush bones with their jaws. We have plants that are poisonous to touch. We have weather that can freeze you solid or burn you alive. I know this. Your planet sounds horrible. It is. But it taught us something important. In a world where everything is dangerous, you can't afford to be nice to the things that want to eat you." Chen stood and walked to the window. "When we were primitive creatures, we had to choose. We could be prey animals, always running and hiding, or we could become something else. Predators? No, something worse. Something that predators are afraid of." Venth felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you mean?" "Humans don't just kill our enemies, Counselor. We eliminate them completely. We make sure they can never hurt anyone again. But surely not all the Krex were evil. Some of them must have been innocent." Chen turned back to face him. "How do you tell the difference? How do you look at a Krex and know if they've eaten someone's child or if they're just thinking about it? You could have tried to change them. Educate them. Could we have educated a virus? Could we have reasoned with a plague?" Venth was quiet for a long moment. "Is that how you see the Krex? As a disease?" "Yes, and we treated them accordingly." There was another long silence. Venth thought about all the Zalathi children who were alive because of what the humans had done, but he also thought about the Krex children who had died. "Sarah," he said finally, "I'm grateful for what you did, but I'm also afraid." "Of what? Of you?" "Of what you're capable of," Chen nodded slowly. "That's wise, is it? Should I be afraid of my rescuers?" "Counselor, let me ask you something. Before we came, how many species in this galaxy engaged in cannibalism?" Venth thought about it. "Perhaps a dozen. And now?" "None that I know of." "Exactly. Word is spread about what happened to the, Krex. Every species that feeds on sentient life has either changed their ways or gone very quiet. You've made the galaxy safer." "Yes. But we've also made it clear what happens to anyone who threatens innocent people." Venth understood. The humans had not just defeated the Krex. They had sent a message to the entire galaxy. A message written in blood and silence. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now we wait," Chen said. "We watch, we listen. And if someone else decides to start eating people," she shrugged, "we deal with them. And if someone threatens Earth?" For the first time since he had known her, Chen smiled a smile that was not entirely human. That would be unfortunate. For them. A week later, Venth attended the first meeting of the Galactic Protection Council. Representatives from dozens of species had gathered on a neutral station to discuss the new reality. The humans had established protection zones throughout the galaxy. Any species could request human protection if they were threatened by aggressors. In return, they agreed to follow certain basic rules. No slavery, no cannibalism, no wars of extinction, Most species were happy to agree. The humans offered better protection than anyone else in the galaxy, and their rules were not unreasonable. But some species were not happy. "This is tyranny," declared Ambassador Hux of the Verilian Empire. "You humans have no right to impose your values on the rest of us." General Chen stood at the podium, looking calm and professional. "You're absolutely right," she said. Hux looked surprised. "I am? Yes, we have no right to impose our values on you. But we do have the ability. That's might makes right." "No," Chen said patiently. "Might makes right is when you use your power to take what you want. What we're doing is using our power to protect what others have. And if we refuse to accept your protection, then you don't get it. What if we actively oppose you?" Chen's expression didn't change, but every being in the room felt the temperature drop. That would be a poor decision. Ambassador Hux sat down quickly. The meeting continued for several hours. Rules were established, boundaries were drawn, and agreements were signed. The galaxy now had a single, unified authority that could enforce basic standards of civilized behavior. That authority was human. Some species called it the best thing that had ever happened to the galaxy. Others called it the most terrifying. Both were probably right. High Counselor Venth returned to Zelathi Prime that evening with mixed feelings. His people were safe, his world was prosperous, and the galaxy was more peaceful than it had been in centuries. But he could not shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed. The humans had not just defeated the Kreks, they had declared themselves the ultimate authority on what was acceptable behavior in the galaxy, and everyone had agreed to it because the alternative was too terrifying to consider. As Venth walked through the peaceful streets of his capital city, he passed a new monument that had been erected in the central plaza. It was a simple black stone with words carved in multiple languages, in memory of those who begged for mercy and in honor of those who answered. But underneath, in smaller text, was another message. "Here stands the proof that sometimes the monsters you call for help are more terrifying than the monsters you're hiding from." Venth stopped and read the inscription again. He wondered if his people would remember this lesson in the generations to come. Somewhere in the darkness above, human ships patrolled the edges of the system, silent guardians watching for threats, protectors who had saved billions of lives, hunters who had eliminated an entire species without losing a single ship. The galaxy was safe now. The question was, what did that safety cost? And more importantly, what would happen if humanity ever decided that other species posed a threat? Venth looked up at the stars and shivered. Despite the warm evening air, the galaxy had learned an important lesson. When you beg for monsters to save you from other monsters, sometimes you get exactly what you ask for, and sometimes that's the most terrifying answer of all. The age of great predators was over. The age of humanity had begun, and in the cold depths of space, human ships continued their eternal patrol, watching and waiting for the next threat to innocent life, ready to show the galaxy once again how Earth's monsters hunt.